Today we have the poem The Haunts by Jeetthayil. Jeetthayil is a contemporary, very important, modern poet of Indian English literature. So let's go into the poem. The haunts, the very word haunts, if you take it in the sense of a noun, it is a place, as a cafe. This cafe is the haunt of many artists or writers. So it becomes a place which is frequented by a particular person or a number of people or a group. Now take haunts in the sense of a verb. It becomes a ghost haunts this place, or this graveyard is haunted by the ghost of a little child. You know, the very word haunt has a sense of ghostliness, that somebody is frequenting that place quite often. And when Jeetthayil uses this word, what is put into our mind? We think of a place or a thought that is a recurrent image in somebody's mind, some place where we frequently go to. As starlight, as ash or rain, as a smear on the moon, as a tree, say a champakalli. So here we see the poet starting with similes. The word as brings to mind similes. So here we see various natural phenomena, various things that we see in nature and the world outside are brought as starlight, as ash, as rain, as a smear on the moon. So these words are symbolic of life, of rebirth, renewal, regeneration, because rain is something that is teeming with life. Rain is water and it comes to earth to cause the seasons to change, to cause the flowers to blossom, trees to become green. So that very image of rain is something full of life, brimming with life. And it also signifies death in a manner. It is the death of one season and the change to another. Same with starlight. Starlight is also again a natural phenomenon. Now ash, the word ash, what does it bring to mind? We have to remember that this poet is very highly symbolic, that every line of the poem is filled with symbols. Now take ash. Ash brings to mind the crematorium. You know that we have seen maybe in real life or in movies or books how the ash is collected from the crematorium. Somebody has passed away and they've been cremated. The ash we see is kept aside, maybe for a couple of years or as how the person sees fit according to their religious beliefs. And one day it is immersed into a holy water, a holy body of water. And this immersion is signifying a saying goodbye to the deceased or making peace with that death, as well as for the spiritual journey of the deceased. Again, ash brings to mind Ash Wednesday, when Christians, various sects of Christians, draw the cross, the holy cross on their forehead with ash, and it is known as Ash Wednesday. It is a symbol of penance, of prayer, and Christian worship. As a tree, say a champakalli. Now the champa tree, it is also known as the temple tree. It is a very auspicious tree seen in many parts of India, seen in all the temples. It is usually seen in temples. It is also planted in houses and considered very auspicious. Its bloom or its blossoms are considered quite spiritual. So here he says, as the champakali, as that tree which brings in this spirit of goodness and life, as a leaf or a man impersonating a leaf torn into shreds and fed to the wind. Now we see that all of nature, all kind of natural phenomena is brought in as similes. And what are they all likened to? This is a question that jumps at us out of the poem. What is our poet likening all these natural phenomena to? And we are constantly made to think of life. Life as we know it on earth is made up of so many tiny moments, of so many tiny images, big and small, the mundane and the profound. Life is made up of so many situations which are very grave, which are very deep, which have a great psychological impact, and at the same time, it is made of the very mundane. Just as a person must get up every morning and must brush his teeth and have his breakfast, the mundane also is equally important. So he says, like a leaf or a man impersonating, like a Shelley's leaf, he is saying this is torn into shreds and fed to the wind. It is dispersed into the wind. As the smell of a small dead animal. Now he says, as the smell of a small dead animal. We see that almost every other day we are coming into contact with death too. You see a tiny bird lying on the ground, a dead body of a tiny bird, and we are immediately struck. It can be a mouse, it can be a little bird, it can be a very tiny insect, in fact. And but when you look at it lying dead, you instantly think of how it was just a while ago. Wouldn't it have been a little bird flying in the sky, a mouse running along, full of life, and all of a sudden, this creature is no longer living. It is lying still, lifeless, and instantly you feel that, where has that sense of life gone from that body? When did it become a mere body? Now, if you look at religions, various religions consider man's spirit to be immortal, while the human body is considered merely a vessel, merely something that contains the spirit. And the moment the spirit leaves the body becomes an empty shell. And, it is just to be discarded or to be thrown back into the mud, where from dust unto dust, like all the Judeo Christian Islamic religions all believe that from dust we come and to dust we return. As a tremble on the stair, a mouse or air, a tear, a heave. So, a tremble on the stair. Did I just hear a noise on the stair? Was that movement? Movement signifies a life. A mouse, a little mouse running along, even that signifies life. Or air, a tear, a heave. There is a tear that wells up in your eye, a heaving, a sighing, and it's just a little action. But in this action, there may be a wealth of meaning. A mother who sits and there is a tear in her eye could be for the son who is away at war in a far off country, and that single tear in her eye has so much meaning. It could be that of a lover missing his beloved, and that heaving or that sighing and waiting is so pregnant with meaning. As fear glimpsed from the window of a plane, so fear is glimpsed from the window of a plane. Somebody is sitting and looking through a window, and there is pain and fear. Here, the poet stresses on the existentialist nature of life, of anxiety, of trepidation, of being so depressed, anxious, fearful. And this person is looking through that window, hoping we know not for whose footsteps. Now, here we have to remember something very important. Charles Baudelaire, the French writer, was one of the major influences for Jeetthayil. And he says that Baudelaire is the reason why I have started writing. And there is a very important poem of Baudelaire about the window pane, window pane, and he says that the life that is going behind that window pane, behind in that square room, is far more important than what we see in the external world. So Baudelaire says that I look through my flat or my apartment and I see a window pane and I see this old lady who is living inside that house. I see her bending at work, I see her doing various mundane routine activities, and I have built a story about her. And you may ask me, is that story the truth? And I will tell you, it is as real as the truth or the reality outside, for it is reality to me. For what I conjure in my mind, what I live, and my experience as the life in another being, that is my reality. So, a sphere glimpsed from the window pane. So, this could be about a person waiting for someone else. Is it a man or woman standing at the window looking afar, waiting for some footsteps? The extreme range of emotions and experiences of human life, we can say, are portrayed in these lines. As a telepathic ginger cat that appears in a slit of moonlight, enters the locked house and leaves its stinking spore in each locked room. So now we see that the poem is filled with imagery, visual imagery, auditory imagery, tactile imagery, kinesthetic imagery. Every form of imagery is going to come out at us. And here we see extreme visual imagery. He says, a telepathic ginger cat that appears in a slit of moonlight. The cat is associated to moonlight. Cats from times immemorial, whichever culture or religion or any background or history of any country you take, cats seem to play an important role. In Egyptian civilization, the cat was considered to be the pet of the moon goddess. The moon goddess herself was shown having the face of a cat. And in Norse mythology, Greek mythology, cats are supposed to bring in luck. They are mysterious. And again, if you take the Christian background, cats are also associated with Mephistopheles, the devil. It is said that the devil himself could not resist the cat. And the ginger cat is considered a symbol of luck. The orange tabby is supposed to have, a streak of independence, they say. So the cat is very mysterious. The cat slowly comes into a house as a pet, we say, but the cat makes the house its own. And as far as the cat is concerned, maybe the humans are the pets he or she owns, and the house belongs to the cat. And he says, I see the image of a slit of moonlight. It is very eerie, a slit of moonlight. And we know the waxing and waning of the moon is again symbolic of life. The ups and downs of life, the full moon in which the wolves howl, and that little crescent, there is life as it grows, is all portrayed by the moon. We know the lunar calendar is used by religions in order to, decide their festivals, their prayers. So the moon is of extreme symbolic value as something which makes life and death seem juxtaposed. This cat, this telepathic cat, appears in a slit of moonlight and enters every room in the locked house and leaves its stinking spoor, its trail, its scent, maybe its droppings in each locked room. That is, it is leaving a bit of itself, and you cannot get out that scent. Now, just imagine this locked house to be the human mind, and we have various rooms in our mind, rooms or compartments into which memories of childhood In one room, a memory of childhood is stored, yet another is our future. Yet another is the existentialist part of us that craves to know a meaning to life. And then there is that room where faith is contained, the faith that allows us to continue in this life which is full of sorrow as well as joy interspersed. So, but into these locked rooms, there is this ginger cat entering, leaving its spoor or scent in every room, such that you cannot remove that scent. What is this that enters the poet's imagination, his reality, and encompasses him and meshes him in its hold? As a boat on the Muvatupura about to drop its load of two children and a woman into the monsoon current, and if the river had taken them, how much pain would it have made? How much would it have saved? So here we have to go into the background of the poet. Jeetthayil was born in Kerala. He is a Keralite, a Malayali, a South Indian, and but he lived a very little period in Kerala. In fact, he was merely born in Kerala. He says in one of his interviews that according to this very strange, rather strange culture of South India, where a woman goes back to her ancestral home to give birth to her child, she leaves her husband's home. In this sense, my mother too traveled back to her native land in southern Kerala, and she gave birth to me. He says that it is while traveling, and he says that basically I was born on the Muvatupura river. So this is going back in time, going into his past. We can say that the poet is touching on his roots which belong to a Syrian Christian family residing in Kerala. So the Muvatupura is again symbolic of his origin. And he says that the current of water was going to drown or put its load out of a woman and two children. And he says, had the river or the water swallowed them, how much pain it would have caused in that family, how much of a loss would it have caused, and yet how much would it have saved too? So here he says that life, each moment is a choice in our life. Like the two roads that are diverging, when Frost says that which road will you take, you know that when you take one road, automatically the other road is not for you. Same way, there is a choice every moment of your life. And here Thayil says that had the river not swallowed them, had that pain escaped them, how much would it have saved? Further on in life, there are so many moments again in store for the protagonist to endure, to suffer, and to live. As my mother trying to push the monstrous head out from between her legs, as the stalker at 4 a.m. swing creaking in the park near my house, downturned face white in cell phone light. So he now says, as my mother who is trying to push the monstrous head out from between her legs. So this is a very rather eerie and scary image of birth. Birth, which is considered so beautiful, is also portrayed as something quite scary. It is the monstrous head of the infant that the mother is trying to push out from between her legs. So we see that the poet is dwelling on childbirth. Childbirth again signifies life. Life coming from the womb into this world. But is that child safe? And what manner of a world is awaiting this child? This child who comes from that water, that amniotic fluid, that place of safety, that cocoon of well-being inside the mother, is pushed and shoved out into the world, And this process causes pain for the mother, pain for the child. We see the child coming out crying, and the mother too is in extreme pain. But we call it the miracle of life. It is a miracle. It is life coming back on earth. He speaks of a stalker who is at 4 a.m. You've seen in a scary movie, in a ghost movie, you would see, or a murderer, a psychopath. He's there on a swing outside a house, sitting, swinging ominously, and the cell phone in his hand is showing a light onto his face. How scary and eerie is that image? His downturned face is white in the cell phone light. Now, is this image only scary, or does it speak of utter loneliness of the human mind? This man who at 4 a.m. cannot sleep is plagued by insomnia. Is he himself the one who is stalking his life? Is he himself the one who is the ghost of his own life, sitting out in the porchway with his face turned towards his cell phone? Is he aimlessly scrolling, aimlessly going through, stuff that does not concern him? Is he in utter boredom or alienation? Now, these are again other symbols that we need to consider in the poem. It is about alienation. We are speaking about isolation, anxiety, insomnia. So, this is a very scary image. As the god that swaggers the top floor of my spirit, of the ghost that twists in the basement, or the slave that inhabits the middle. So now he's taking his life and showing us a picture. He says, the god who lives on the top floor, the slave in the middle floor, and the ghost that inhabits the basement. So he says that all human beings are made of good and bad. There are gradations, or, shades, various shades of gray. There are moments of uncertainty, and there are moments of chivalry and generosity. And when man is in his chivalrous, generous mood or moment, he plays God, he becomes, or he himself is so filled with the divine spirit. He is his authentic self, and that is God who lives in the top floor. And then there is the ghost that haunts, the ghost of regret, the ghosts of isolation, the ghosts of sorrow and grief, inhabit the basement. They are ever lurking beneath. Quite often you see that the face of depression or mental illness, the face of it is a smile. But in the basement of that human being is a troubled ghost, forever trying to remain lurking behind. Or there is a slave that inhabits the middle. Who is the slave? Could it be that human who is conforming to the norms of society, being one with the rest of mankind, enjoying or going through the motions that are supposed to make a human part of mankind? Is it not the slave who is no longer bothered about his own feelings or his own sensations or his authentic true self, but simply bows down to the norms of society and lives in such a manner that he is never out of line? He is always proper. So this also brings to mind Freud's id, ego and superego, man's ideal self to which he aspires to be, his animal or primitive self which is forever lurking within, and his real self, or the self as is seen by the human beings around him. As an inconsolable soprano nearing the end of Ave Maria, as a cherry red Stratocaster elite found in a pawn shop in Vancouver and bargained down to $800. Now we see the poet is referring to his own musical journey, his journey in the field of music, Jeetthayil is not only a poet, he is a musician. He has played in a band. He has played the guitar. He has composed opera songs. We could call him a person who is dealt in so many fields of art and music. He's a librettist, a writer, a performing artist. So now we see the poet dwelling on that part of his journey, the journey into music. He says, as an inconsolable soprano nearing the end of Ave Maria. So a soprano is this is an allusion we can see to Ave Maria. Ave Maria is that humble, simple prayer of Christian faith of Hail Mary, blessed art thou among women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb. This simple prayer becomes a very great song or incredible feat of opera called the Ave Maria, and the soprano is a feminine voice, that is a person singing in a high pitched voice covering all ranges, singing something so beautiful. This opera which he says is inconsolable, so poignant is the grief portrayed in that Ave Maria, that prayer which is so soulful. We can say that there is a hearkening to his Christian faith also here, as well as his closeness to opera. The cherry red Stratocaster, that is a guitar, a musical instrument, which he says that was bargained from a pawn shop in Vancouver, Canada. Now, Jeetthayil was born in Kerala. He lived for a very long time in Bombay, Delhi. He spent a great deal of his life in New York, Singapore, Canada. He's traveled to various parts of the world, had his education in New York. So, all these travels, everything is a part and parcel of him. And his journey into music, where he says this refers to how he has taken from this pawn shop, he has bargained for very costly, we can say something so expensive it probably would go to 30 or $40,000, and something for which he has bargained to an $800. So we know that this for this person this instrument is of very high value, and he has bargained and brought it, and beautiful music has been evoked from this instrument. Now we see him going to another part of his life as bad heroin in a Delhi alley, pink pill crushed up and sold in a twist of paper, snorted hungrily for no pleasure. So now he says, as the similes continue, as bad heroin, he is now speaking about drugs. And Jeetthayil actually shot to fame with his novel Narcopolis, which is about the deep-seated, the underbelly of Delhi, the opium dens and other, centers of drugs addiction, where men have, men are experimenting with drugs, where he himself was immersed in taking drugs, and also all kind of substance abuse happened. So this is a man who has gone through this excruciating painful journey and has managed to come out of it, and he is speaking about his journey through drugs. And Narcopolis, we have to remember this novel was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2012. It has shot to fame because he shows a very true and very real picture of the opium dens, where he says that people would just sit on the ground, they would sit cross-legged on the floor, and they would be snorting this opium which was dumbing them down by the moment. The poet speaks about the pink pill that is crushed and sold in a twist of paper. And this drug, he says, is snorted hungrily for no pleasure. So this drug is not being taken to give any pleasure to the person, but it is taken meaninglessly. simply to dumb down the senses so that this human being, this person who is taking it, can be in a state of, rather quite a subconscious, he is not even in his full consciousness. And it is said that about these drugs, that the person who is taking it feels that he is in a state of euphoria, he is in a state of ecstasy. He imagines himself to have become so much sharper or keener, smarter, whereas he is dumbing himself down all the time and entering into becoming a wreck, a human wreck, destroying his own mind and body. As a woman, again and again, whose hair curls, mouth moves, or eyes well like yours. Now suddenly he brings into the picture a woman and he says, again and again. The words again and again bring to mind that he is seeing one woman after another, various women in a platonic sense or a sexual sense, or even as mere acquaintances, are coming into his life. And these women, he says, they all have hair that curls like yours, the mouth moves or eyes well up like yours. And we see that in all these women, the poet is seeing one particular woman. Because now we find the answer to all the natural phenomena, all these things that he has been telling us, as ash, as moonlight. Now suddenly another person has come into the picture. A woman whose eyes well up, he says, whose hair curls. She is in every woman he sees. She is every woman whom he meets. As a figure by the side of the expressway urging me to crash the car, in a voice so calm and wise it took every shred of sanity not to give in. Now he is talking about, we can see the mental anguish. Now depression, if you take depression or mental illness, we see or we have read and know that there are voices in the mind of an individual who is suffering from the sickness of his mind or her mind. And this voice is constantly telling them to do such and such an action. And how difficult is it for this patient, this person who suffers from this mental illness, to tell that voice, stay away from me, be quiet, for this voice is to them as real or sometimes more real than the voice of reason, than the voice of family, of voices around them. And this voice alienates them from all around them. And he says that this voice is telling me to crash my car. This voice is asking me to commit suicide. And how difficult it is for me not to listen to this voice, to keep telling this voice, no, you are merely a sound inside my head. I will not listen to you. I will not crash this car and die. It takes every shred of sanity not to give in to the voice inside his head. As good heroine in Zurich, now his travels are coming, and we see that there too he is approaching, he's saying as good heroine. Now this drug heroin is being described, and from there too he is probably mingling with other men and women who are into the habit of taking drugs, and he is making a place of oblivion for himself, somewhere to sit and forget his own mental anguish.